what kind of things do we know when we know a language? We know a lot, right? But here are just some things that we know. We know, for example, how to identify words influence speech, which is called speech segmentation. So the actual signal that we hear in spoken language is this auditory signal, which these are different visual representations of it, and you can see that it's got a lot of mess, it's got a lot of fuzz. That's not what we perceive. What we perceive tends to be more structured, more abstracted away from that physical signal, and we process it in different ways until we might turn what this signal is and perceive it as, what a pretty kitty, right? So that's speech segmentation, taking a fluent stream of speech and figuring out where the words are so that you take this and get what a pretty kitty. That's something you know how to do. You also know how to pronounce words, which is called phonology. So for example, in English, you know that you have to put emphasis on the first syllable of the word kitty. That's why we say kitty and not kitty. Kitty is some other strange word, right? It's not it, right? So part of your knowledge is pronunciation, where to put stress or emphasis in order to properly pronounce a word so that other speakers can understand you. We also know that certain words behave like other words because they are the same category of word. In fact, the type of knowledge, this is a syntactic knowledge, so they are the same syntactic category. So here's a particular syntactic frame. What a pretty blank. And it turns out that things go there that we tend to call nouns if we're going to label them, but the important thing, the thing that we know, is that penguin can go there, and kitty can go there, and owl can go there. These types of words are all the same type of thing, the same category of thing, which again we might call a noun. And so we know that certain words, these behave similarly because they're part of the same syntactic category. That's another type of thing that we know how to syntactically categorize things appropriately. We also know how to interpret words in context, which is knowledge of syntax, the structure of language, and semantics, the meaning, right? So if I say, oh, look, a pretty kitty, right? Talking about this kitty right here. Look, there's another one. Another what? What does one mean? Well, in this context, maybe it means another pretty kitty, or maybe it just means another kitty who maybe isn't so pretty. Both of those can work in context. But you know what it doesn't mean? It doesn't mean another wombat. Why not? Why can't it mean another wombat? Well, it has to do with how you interpret one in this context right here with this kitty that has these properties and this utterance. That's your knowledge of syntax and semantics at work. We also know how to put words together to, say, ask questions, which is our knowledge of syntax, our structural knowledge. So we have this kitty right here, here's the context, was bought as a present for someone. Great. And Lily thinks this kitty is pretty. Lovely. So, can we ask this? Who does Lily think the kitty for is pretty? Like, I want to know, who's this kitty a present for? Who does Lily think the kitty for is pretty? And hopefully you are also making a frowny face because you can't say this in English. This is very bad. We cannot put these words together this way to ask questions. Why not? Our knowledge of syntax tells us this is not okay. We also know how to identify the right interpretation in context, which is our knowledge of pragmatics and our rules of conversation. So consider this context. We have some kitties. There's one sitting on stairs. This kitty may be sitting on stairs or sitting somewhere else. This kitty sitting in a glass. And I say to you, hey, look, every kitty didn't sit on the stairs. Now this utterance is actually interesting because of the parts that are in blue here, every and int, the not. Actually, the way that they work together in English leads to two possible interpretations. One is that no kitty sat on the stairs, right? And the other is that not all kitties sat on the stairs. Now, how are you going to interpret this given this context? If you are a typical adult, what you will do is say, oh, you must mean not all kitties sat on the stairs. Why? Because as part of your knowledge of pragmatics, your knowledge of how people use language to communicate, you assume that your speaker, barring other knowledge, is going to say something truthful, right? So you look at this context and it's not true that no kitties sat on the stairs. These kitties right here are sitting on the stairs. But it is true that not all the kitties sat on the stairs, right? This guy didn't, and maybe this guy didn't either, right? So your knowledge of pragmatics is helping you identify the right interpretation for ambiguous things in context. Well, it's a lot of different stuff that you know. Again, these are just some of the things that we know when we know our language. And development, the question is, how did we develop that knowledge? How did we come to know all of these things about our language?